Hello and welcome to Lifelong Learning on Location. I'm Ann Hansen and I'll be your host today as we go on location at Western Nevada College in Carson City. We're talking about a wonderful program in American Sign Language and Deaf Studies that Western Nevada College has. And I have a number of guests here with me. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. These are all folks in the American Sign Language Deaf Studies program or graduates or coordinators of that program. So I will start with my far left and introduce a student from the program, James Fitz. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And can you tell us where you're from?
Well, pretty much all over. I was born in San Francisco, but growing up in a Navy family, I moved around a lot. But we also lived in communities where there were several deaf people. In my Boy Scout troop, and there was a deaf boy, and he taught us not exactly ASL, but at least hand signing so that we could communicate better.
So from a young age, you've been exposed to American Sign Language.
Yes.
Very good. Cindy Frank is the coordinator of the WNC ASL Deaf Studies program. Welcome, Cindy.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Do you want to know where I'm from?
Absolutely.
Everything?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I was born in California, raised in California. I myself am hard of hearing. I can hear probably about maybe 40% of what an average hearing person hears. My mother is deaf. All four of my grandparents are deaf. My father's hearing, but of course because his parents were deaf, he was a principal and all this other stuff for different schools for the deaf around the United States. But I got my teaching credential and my master's from Southern California, and I have a master's in deaf education and linguistics and a minor in English, and I've been teaching now for a long time. I think about 15, 16, 17 years, deaf and hearing, but primarily deaf children.
And you have some children of your own, too.
Yeah, we moved here to Nevada, and we love it here. I have 3 children, and I absolutely love working here for WNC.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you're Shannon Archer?
Yes.
And you are a holder of many hats, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
One of them is that you're a graduate of Western Nevada College.
Yes, I believe it was a couple of years ago I graduated with a general studies degree, taken all of my signing classes. I currently am an interpreter for a school district in Northern Nevada. I also teach part-time for WNC. And I think
so it's become part of your life, really,
yes.
on all ends.
Yeah, it has.
The 3 of you are really intimately involved with this wonderful program, and it's really a special program in Northern Nevada, isn't it?
Yes.
Perhaps you can kind of share with me why you think it's so important that in our area we have a program like this. Do you want to start, Cindy?
Yeah, well, currently there are no degrees offered in American Sign Language, Deaf Studies, or interpreting anywhere in Northern Nevada except here at WNC. And the deaf community has really approached a lot of the higher learning institutions in Northern Nevada, and WNC was the one that really embraced our needs. And we've been offering American Sign Language classes for over 10 years. But only for the last few years have we offered a 2-year Deaf Studies degree. You basically learn ASL and deaf culture and just a basic degree. And then hopefully, very soon, we're going to be offering a 2-year degree in interpreting. And so that's very exciting. Yeah.
And is that the types of classes that you two take or have taken at Western?
Yes.
Yes, I've taken American Sign Language 1 through however many they offer, and the finger spelling classes and deaf culture and all those classes.
How about you?
Oh, right now I'm currently enrolled into the ASL2 class, Deaf History, which is a very interesting. I love deaf history. I loved reading about it. Matter of fact, I read several chapters of the book today. And
tell us a little bit about deaf history, if you can think of it.
A little bit about deaf history. There's some interesting things about deaf history, especially certain comments from people that you would never think would make these kind of comments. Aristotle himself and everything.
Supportive of?
No, absolutely not. He actually believed that a deaf person in general was senseless and incapable of any reason. And later on, a matter of fact, what I love the best is St. Augustine, one of the founding fathers of the Catholic Church, originally believed that deaf people, like in the New Testament, may have some sort of demonic possession that causes them to be deaf and dumb. But after observing and watching the deaf, even he himself began to say that watching them, the signs with the hands and the body movement, still connects to the soul and still can be saved by God.
Yeah. So there were really a lot of misconceptions through history about deaf people.
Yes.
Very much. And did you experience any of that growing up, any misconceptions?
Oh, yeah. I don't think, even myself, growing up with an all-deaf family, I have 8 aunts and uncles that are totally deaf, numerous cousins, all 4 of my grandparents, like I said before. I never really appreciated that it was a total language in and of itself. I think a lot of people, including myself, thought that ASL was some kind of a broken English, and but deaf people knew differently. There isn't anything that you can't say in American Sign Language that you can say in any other language.
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, there's just anything. There's nothing that it is a full and complete language that's able to describe abstract thoughts and everything. It is nothing like English.
Absolutely.
More beautiful.
It's
much more beautiful.
Just to say that ASL is a language is demeaning it. It's an art. Because of the expressions that you're able to come out that's just not in most languages. English in particular. English it has so many words that literally mean nothing, but the just simple signs, and if you don't know a sign for something, using your hands to spell letters, which is finger spelling, you can say anything you want.
Yeah. And also, too, I think it's important for people to realize that it's a visual language, and I believe, according to history, it is the oldest form of communication. The Native Americans used it. I'm sure, of course, we don't have any caveman pictures, but I would imagine that they used a lot of hand signals because tree, rainbow, clouds, it emulates pictures, and pictures are international.
Absolutely.
And the beauty of ASL is that you're able to paint your own picture visually, and it's a lot more like watching a movie than reading a book. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is really beautiful, and everybody takes on their own style, and you develop it, and it's like art. You develop your own way of signing, and it's absolutely stunning. And that's why this program has grown exponentially, if I said that right, because I think the love of ASL, and people are realizing that it's really a beautiful language. It's challenging, though. It's not easy by any stretch, but because 80% of people are visual learners, I think they're able to acquire that language a lot easier than people who are more verbal or who are not verbal learners.
Was that the case for you, Shannon?
I actually took American Sign Language. I wanted to become a teacher. And so I graduated from high school and thought that it would just be a good class to take. At that time, it was a fine arts credit. And I fell in love with the language, and I just continued on, and here I am today.
So it's your passion now?
Yeah, I do. It's beautiful. Like Cindy said, I think it is the most beautiful language. It really is. And it depends on the person, their style. It's the same idea with accents. If you go back east, they speak a little bit differently than we do here. It's the same idea. You have your own style, and you're able to put yourself into that and make your own expression.
So
Plus
if
all the regional signs too.
Yes.
Every region has different signs for places. It's such an immense language.
It is.
Well, the sky's the limit, right?
Exactly.
So if you each told me the same story, you would each tell it a bit differently.
Yeah. Well, like if you do Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood, you actually become the mother. Okay, grandmother's sick, you need to bring her. Okay, Mama. So you actually become the character or the person that you're referring to. So if they had a fight, Shannon looked at James and said, "What are you doing?" And he looked, "None of your business." So you actually become that person. So it takes on almost a form of acting, and therefore it's your own.
So it is somewhat theatrical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very
Just
much.
a little.
And you're doing it as a career now.
Yes.
And you're also using it in your job, aren't you?
Yes. As a correctional officer in the Nevada Department of Corrections, there are a number of inmates or people that come to prison that are deaf and are unable to communicate thoroughly with the officers. And it's amazing. We have so many officers that can speak Spanish or other languages, but the smallest percentage in the prison is the deaf people, and they can't communicate. Yeah. They only have each other, and some of them don't even actually know ASL. Some of them know a type that's called a Rochester method, which is just finger spelling, word for word, in English, which is an extremely long conversation.
It's a little laborious.
It's like typing or writing out your messages.
That would be very frustrating, I would think, having
it is to a lot of
little communication.
It is very frustrating, and there's a lot of things that people, just basic things that people need to convey to somebody else, and if you're not able to do that, it is the most frustrating thing in the world.
Yeah, and if you imagine that of a very small portion of your day, this deaf person suffers through it every day, 24/7, and I think that's why I think the deaf community is so appreciative of WNC, because they have really embraced this and allowed us a nurturing field in which for us to grow. And what happens is we will never know the effect that we are having on the deaf children, because without language you cannot learn. Without language you cannot grow. You can't acquire more information, whether it be social skills, academic, learning about your own family traditions and so on and so forth. Because 90% of parents that have deaf children, the hearing parents that have deaf children, never learn to sign fluently. And that's really a shame. It really is.
Think of what they miss out on.
I cannot imagine
Absolutely.
how you would rear a child without being able to communicate with them. And that's one of the things. We have parents here. I just got a call today. Another parent is interested in taking a class. We've had grandparents taking classes, cousins, neighbors, and friends. And deafness is not so much a disability, or let me say it's a disability with a cure. In other words, a deaf person is no longer disabled if they're in a room full of people who can sign. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's
they have
like
every
all of
chance
a
to
sudden their
communicate.
disability is gone.
The deaf community is just language indifferent.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We don't call ourselves disabled. We're language different. So the more people that learn, the more our disability melts away.
How many people in our area are language different?
Oh, wow. Well,
Any
the
idea?
majority of people who are deaf or hard of hearing are elderly, obviously, and it's very cumbersome for them to learn sign language. But people that are born deaf, I would say we have easily 600 people or more. And the shame of it is a lot of them, they're kind of hidden away by their parents, and what we want to do is show that, you're okay, you're fine, come on out, you're And I hope to be that kind of a role model to my students. And we do have a lot of deaf students here taking these classes. We have one student that's going on to UNR. We have several deaf students at UNR. But the whole thing goes back to whether or not they have good interpreters.
Absolutely.
And these kind of people basically are their ears and their access, they're their cure to let them understand what the teacher is saying in their own native language. And so they can learn and they can get degrees and they can go out and be successful, productive individuals. And so this program obviously means a lot to me and to a lot of us in the deaf community. And we just thank God for people like them. We need more. We need a lot more.
Shannon, when you're in the schools, is it that way? I mean, tell us about how it is when you interact with a child.
It is that way. It's pretty much, if I'm in the classroom with the student, I'm the only one that they can speak with unless there's another deaf student in there. So they ask you all sorts of questions that, as an adult, you kind of, you don't want to cross that line, but you know that they don't have anyone else to ask or to be able to explain it to them in a way that they're going to be able to understand.
So they may need not just the academic questions, but the life skills
questions
and the personal questions as well.
Oh, yeah. And last year I worked at a high school, and they have all sorts of questions that their parents can't help them answer because they may know sign, but not enough to be able to communicate with them and clearly explain to them simple things that we take for granted. So it is. I mean, I'll be interpreting, or the student will be working independently, and they'll just look at you and say, "Wait a second, what is this?" And you kind of go, "Well, you should know that."
Mm-hmm.
But I feel it's my job to educate them, so when they do graduate and they move on, that they have that much more knowledge inside of them that they can take with them.
How frustrating must it be for someone who can't get basic questions answered if they haven't had someone to talk to?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
Have you found that with the inmates as well?
Yes, absolutely. It's some of them get so frustrated that sometimes
they act out.
They do act out. That because it's if you're unable to communicate, it's like a baby and everything. When you're not able to actually verbally communicate and tell someone what's wrong, you have to act out. You have to cry. You have to get someone's attention so that they will focus their attention on you and everything. And sometimes, unfortunately, this is why they're in prison too.
Sometimes.
Because nobody could communicate with them and they acted out in the wrong way.
And if I may add something, there was a student locally that the neighbor let him borrow a dirt bike just to ride it around a little bit. Well, 2 days later, the deaf child went over there and borrowed the dirt bike again and was arrested for stealing. But I really believe to this day that student did not, or that client did not know the difference between borrowing and stealing. Well, if I was allowed to ride a bike once, or ride this motorbike once, then why would a second time, and then why am I going to jail? And then they have handcuffs. Well, that's like putting tape over your mouth, And so I've also actually worked with we have an academy here, a police academy, and I've worked with them to kind of let them know as far as what the procedures and the laws are, as far as how to arrest and how to deal with deaf and hard of hearing.
I never would have thought of that, but you're right. If you can't use your hands.
Well, and they normally handcuff you back here. And a lot of people think that deaf people have the ability to lip read, and that's a very big mistake. Most deaf people do not know how to lip read well enough to communicate, especially in that kind of an intense situation. Only about 30% of words on the mouth are lip readable, are visual enough that you can tell the difference of what they're saying. And then you have to be able to know English in order to understand the lip reading. Well, for deaf people, because English is such a highly verbal language, for a deaf person to learn English is as difficult as a blind person learning to sign. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
It's just not an accessible language to them. And Well, yes, I can read on the paper, but the thing is that we read because we've heard it before. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So the reading becomes more and more difficult for deaf people. So a lot of times writing back and forth is not necessarily a good option. Although if it's a basic, trying to order something in the restaurant, or hi, how are you, or what's your phone number, that kind of stuff is fine to write back and forth. But certainly a police officer, correctional officer would never be able to communicate in that kind of depth.
So what is Western doing to teach people how to communicate with this large part of our community?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Oh, we're doing everything we possibly can. First of all, the college. We've expanded our classes. We've offered a lot more sections. We now have classes in Douglas.
And Fallon, too, don't we?
Fernley.
And Fernley. And they're all going very well. The first ASL 2 class is full. Oh, not full, but it has a high number of students.
First ASL 2 class in Douglas is...
That's great.
Yes.
Fallon, the same thing.
So there's a need out there, and people are starting to know about this program.
There is such a tremendous need. If anybody ever has I have a lot of people that come to me and say, gosh, I've always wanted to learn to sign. I've always wanted to learn to sign. And then when they're finally here, we build on that. But right now, there is such a need for interpreters in the community. We currently have only 3, maybe 4 certified interpreters in northern Nevada that can interpret in court, that can interpret in medical offices, and they get paid at $60, $75 an hour.
So there's some job potential here, isn't there?
There is so much job potential. I mean, is there any school that you couldn't move, any place that you couldn't move in the United States?
Pretty much go anywhere that I would like to go and find a job.
Really?
Yeah.
That's comforting, isn't it?
It's nice, yeah.
And how about you? Do you feel like it's given you job opportunities that you had hoped it would?
Actually, it's opened up more of an opportunity for what I want to do. Actually, for well into 23 years now, I've been taking multiple martial arts, self-defense programs, things like that. I teach as well. And the one thing I've always noticed in all of the instructors that I've had is that they won't take on deaf students. They won't, because they're unable to communicate with them.
And here's an opportunity.
Exactly. It's a part of the community that doesn't have access to self-defense.
So many services they're missing out on.
They're missing these services, and they're even at a higher risk.
Yeah. 50%. I mean, deaf women have a 50% higher rate of getting sexually molested than hearing deaf women. Because people look at them and they think, oh, well, she can't talk. She can't hear. She's not going to be able to call the police. She's not going to be able to tell them what I look like or what I did or didn't do.
Or even hear me come up.
Yeah. Right.
Try and get them.
Yeah.
Because I could hear their footsteps. Whereas if it was a deaf person, you wouldn't be able to hear as much of your surroundings as...
That's heartbreaking.
I know. I don't want this to seem very gloomy. It's just
a reality, isn't it?
It is a reality.
The thing is that these are all situations that can be resolved.
Absolutely.
And these are just one of hundreds of examples of the students. We have really become a community where we go out and have coffee together, and really it's kind of a subculture within the college. We all know each other's names. We hang out. We go places together. I think I'm a lot more than just the professor and the student. I think I'm more of a facilitator, where I kind of provide you the material where you can kind of grow on your own, and you learn and practice with each other because it's an interactive language. And so it's not like you just go in and you take the class and you leave. You have to mingle with each other.
Certainly. Has it worked?
I think so, yeah. Even here, I don't know necessarily names of all the students, but I still show up to ASL 1 classes, ASL 2 classes, just because I learn something new every day. It doesn't matter what the level, but I'll see them, and then later I'll see them in the hall or something, and I'll say, oh, hi, how are you? Oh, good. And, you definitely feel the connection.
And the American Sign Language is becoming one of the more spoken languages in our country,
It is the third most used language in the United States.
Really?
So English, Spanish, and American Sign Language. And it's in Canada as well. So Canada, all of North America, that's the third most predominant language. And so
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So what should students do if they're interested in the program? Can they get it in the high schools, first of all?
We're working on that. Right now, WNCC is the only college that has provided American Sign Language as a dual credit.
Okay.
So the students can take I actually have many, I would say at least 15, 20 students that are taking it as a dual credit. A lot of people don't know that that's out there. If a high school student takes an American Sign Language class here at WNC, they can get high school foreign language credit as well as college foreign language credit.
Well,
a lot of people
option.
don't know that. That ASL is a foreign language credit. It's not an elective or something of that sort. It is a foreign language. So because 80% of people are visual learners, why not try ASL instead of Spanish or French?
I have a student who's taken other foreign languages, spoken foreign languages, and he decided to take ASL because he doesn't do well with the spoken. He's in my ASL 2 class this semester because he really understands it and gets it.
So it's working for them. And
working.
I know it works if you transfer to a university, too, from Western.
Oh, yeah.
It will fulfill your foreign language requirement at many universities.
Anywhere in the United States.
Is that right?
And I do want to add that, within 4 years, she went from not knowing any sign language at all to passing both the elementary and secondary proficiency tests way beyond the requirements. So it does work. The program does really produce some beautiful signers.
Well, we have to attribute that to the instructors, teachers, and the mentors. The mentoring that only recently started the mentoring program, and that's helped so many people in just a few semesters that I've been here and taking the ASL classes. I've seen so many people, because they're able to go and practice more than just being in school, that extra little bonding between people, and it's fun. It's a very fun language. I've taken other foreign languages, and they're not fun. They're not fun because there's so many strict rules. In ASL, there are rules. There are grammar rules that you have to follow, but it's a fun language.
And it sounds like it's a really vibrant learning community, too. And I think that's when students succeed, is when they have a vibrant learning community.
Exactly.
So we are, almost out of time. We've had such a good conversation. But how would a student get if they're interested in ASL, what should they do? Quickly, all of you.
Well, they can go to the internet.
Okay.
Or better yet, just come up here.
Yeah.
Visit Western.
Visit. The facilitators here are very well informed. They will give you packets, and they have no problem whatsoever explaining things to you.
Very good.
So they can go to WNC.edu or come in and drop by and visit one of the classes.
Very good.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I was just, online. All the teachers are listed there. So if you have a specific area that if you would rather take classes in Fallon, then you can go to that area or Douglas or whatever.
So there are options throughout Northern Nevada for learning ASL. Well, I want to thank you all for coming on the program. It's been wonderful having you, and I applaud all of you for the wonderful work you're doing. And I will thank you for being with us on Lifelong Learning. I'm Ann Hansen, and I'll see you next time.